Good afternoon. It's time to do my month-end roundup on my numbers and kind of go through the spreadsheet like I typically do at the end of the month. So that's what we're going to do today. This is for the month of May. I'm going to warn you up front that this video will get a little wonky with some statistical analysis that I did on my numbers so far in the first 5 months. Basically just kind of looking at my profitability and how I'm getting that profit and where those rides are coming from that generate that profit. So we'll get into that here in a second, but first we'll go through the numbers themselves for the month. As you can see, I had gross earnings of $2,700 with a net profit of $822.90. That $822.90 I think is my lowest profitable month I've had so far. Generally, I'm usually way over that. But that's just indicative of how slow May turned out to be at the end of the month, and we can kind of look at the back end of the month here in a second. My total average dollar per mile was 308. The dollar per mile total average net was 251. The net, of course, doesn't include tips. I drove 2,042 miles with an average fare of 756, and my average miles driven per outing was 145. Now that's pretty high. That's I'm typically not that high. Did 263 rides throughout the month, and that was on pretty much on average, maybe a little bit low actually. And then down here you can see I have the average cost. My goal for the month per ride, per mile is $1.58, and then the overall dollar per mile, that's the gross earnings divided by the total miles driven, was 133. So I ended up pretty low below what my goal number was. I'd like to see this number at the 158 mark. And to kind of give you a graphical view of my earnings over the last 5 months, the blue is January, the orange is May. Here's your last 5 months. I peaked pretty good in March. Was definitely one of my best months so far. And then of course May is kind of down with what January was. I'm almost right at it. And if we look at the back end of the month, I'll scroll down here. The back end of the month, things really just kind of changed right after Memorial Day. It just got super slow. 19 rides, 28, I think that was a weekend, and then we get to 15, 19. Oops, missed some legs in here. I had my $16 day in here with that video. So it's slowed down tremendously towards the end of the month. And, I guess it's somewhat indicative of what's going to happen here through maybe for the remainder of the summer. Here's my $16 day. So I don't know, how do you overcome this? Well, one of the things that I wanted to figure out was what's my sweet spot when it comes to rides, and that's where this is going to get kind of wonky. So I took my all the rides that I've done in the first 5 months, and I put them in a spreadsheet, and then I plotted them out here on this scatter chart to see where they are, where all my rides fall. And as you can see, the main concentration of my rides are right here in the 10 mile, 10 miles or less, and they fall in the $20 or less category, and really kind of in the $10 range per fare. So basically 94% of my rides are less than 10 miles in distance, and 77% of my rides are at $1.68 per mile or more, which is perfect. That's what I want. I mean, I'd like to see the 77% get up into the 90s. So that's kind of my goal going forward, and what I'm going to look at is to try to boost that number, even to make this number even higher, make it a higher percentage of my rides. So I boiled down the rides that are over a dollar, in the 10 mile, $10 range to kind of see a little bit more about where they are. And as you can see, these $1.68 rides or greater are represented right here in this scattergram right here. And you can see they all fall within this box pretty tight. So I got one outlier out here But that $1.68 mark per mile gives me the highest concentration of profitable rides that are 10 miles or less, and I'm right in that sweet spot of where I want to be. And that's kind of my focus going forward. I'm going to probably narrow down my total distance to make it shorter and to focus more on those high profitable short rides to maximize my profits. Because that $1.68 represents a 90% profit on every ride that I do, which, that's pretty significant. And if I'm getting even more than that, well, then obviously that's better. But if that becomes my mean of the rides that I do, then that's ideal for me when it comes to being profitable. It's because what I would like to do is, in the end, is to drive this number down, increase this number here, and which will increase this number here and get it closer to this right here. So every month, I adjust my cost based on my average miles driven. So this month coming up in June is really going to be kind of skewed because of the higher miles that I drove here. So I need to kind of work backwards in the rides that I do to get this number up, and this number down is my objective. So I try to do this analysis every month to make sure that I'm moving in the right direction and to give me some standing to make changes to my driver strategy going forward. Does everyone need to do this? I don't know. I think you need to have some idea what your costs are. What are your costs? How many miles do you typically drive? And figure out what that cost per mile is for you. And then use that as your baseline to determine what rides you're going to do. And I think that's how I've developed my driver strategy. Again, I've been profitable every month because of it, and that's the most important thing. I'm not chasing dollars, I'm chasing dollar per mile to be profitable. And I think that's what differentiates you as a driver between every other driver, especially the drivers that are struggling right now to make money, is they're probably taking rides that are not profitable and they're wasting that time doing that when they could have been taking rides that are profitable for them and maximizing their time to make a profit. And looking at this in that way, I think helps out tremendously with being a profitable driver. I forget what his name is, but there's a guy on YouTube who says that, basically that you shouldn't run this as a business. I totally disagree. I think that you should be running this as a business and thinking about a profit and loss. You may not be able to select the rate that you get from Uber, but in fact, I would argue you can based on the rides that you accept, because you don't have to accept everything. I know they want you to, but you don't have to. And if you're out to make a profit, you can accept every ride that comes in. You won't do it. You will be burning up money in the end, as opposed to being selective and having a minimum and looking at that as the basis for you to select a ride. Anyway, if you have any questions about the numbers, about how I come up with this, about the spreadsheet or anything like that, please leave a comment below. And of course, please like and subscribe. I will do another one of these at the end of the month of June, and we will go from there. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Appreciate all the subscribers, and I will talk to you guys soon.